Do you find yourself having trouble remembering kanji, vocabulary, or grammar you learned? What was the translation of konnichiwa and what does this kanji mean? So, if you want to increase your rate of memory and never forget what you learned, watch this video. So, basically, I will give some examples regarding the Japanese language, but those principles are applicable to many other languages or even in general remembering. So I will tell you something about spaced repetition and structured learning. So I will have 4 examples. You can find them down in the timestamps. 2 for spaced repetition, 2 for structure creating, and 1 bonus tip at the end. So let's get started. So let's start with structure creating. So basically, if you learn something, you create a mental structure in your mind, right? So it's easier for you to understand. So let me give you an example. So my first tip regarding structure learning is learn vocabularies instead of kanjis. So what is the problem by learning kanjis by itself? So usually when you learn kanji, you learn how to write it and which kind of readings it has and so on. But it's kind of hard to learn because you don't have it connect to other information. So my tip is learn vocabularies. And vocabularies usually mix different kanji together. So let me give you an example. You have the kanji for on. It means warmth. And then you have different combinations like taion, kion, shitsuon. And for example, if you learn on, you know it is warmth. And you look at taion. It means body and on warmth. So the warmth of your body. So if you learn it in a combination, trust me, it will be much easier to memorize. My second tip also regarding this first point is learn the basic kanji vocabulary first. So if you learn a new vocabulary, a new kanji, and you then start to take a word with like 5 kanjis together, it will be a bit hard to memorize. So take the most basic word. So usually some kanjis have a word where just the kanji in itself is written. So if we take the example with taion, if you just write tai, the reading becomes karada, so just body. So you learn the basic meaning of karada and you learn the basic meaning of on, so warmth. And then you have those 2 basic meanings in your head and combine them in new vocabularies. That is at least how I don't forget kanji that fast. And another example, you can take tearai. It means toilet. It is a more formal way for toilet. If you translate it like this, it means the place where you wash your hands. So te means hand and arai means to clean or to wash. So if you first learn te and arao, you can mix it together. The place or where I wash my hands. So toilet. So that's about the first part of structured learning. So create stories. It sounds as simple as it is. So you try to create a story around a new thing you learned, because your brain functions like this. If you have a new information, your brain needs to know why this is relevant. So the more things you connect it with, the more relevant it becomes in your brain. And the more connected it becomes to other informations, so in other words, easier to memorize. And let me give you an example. We had the kanji with on, for example. So I will give you an example story how to remember it. But before that, let me tell you some basic things about kanji so it's easier to understand for you. So kanjis consist of radicals. People that first start to learn Japanese think every sign is just written by itself. But there are certain parts in kanjis. So let me give you an example. If you take the kanji for arao, we just had, and the kanji for on, you can see a similarity, right? Which one is it? Those 3 dots. So they usually mean water. And you can take your own interpretation of it. So, I don't know, you can say it is sweat or flies or whatever. But usually it's more easier to take the traditional translations. You can look them up in the internet. But I mean, if you can remember it more easier, then just take a different one. So in this case, we say those three dots are water. And if you look at the kanji for on, you can see the kanji at the bottom right. It is also kanji by itself. It means plate. So the plate where you eat something. That's also why I mentioned before that you should learn the most basic ones first, because they combine into each other. Not just in vocabularies, but also in kanji in itself. And you also have the kanji for hi, so sun or day. So you can just take water, sun, and plate, and I don't know, don't judge me for this, but you have a plate with water, and if the sun shines on it, it gets warm. So you have warmth. But anyway, if you have a better way of memorizing it, just write it down in the comments. So yeah, create stories. And if you want to help others, just write down your stories in the comments, and maybe people can take those stories and have an easier way of learning some kanji. So let's come to the second part of this video, and it's about spaced repetition. So, I mean, there are many videos out about this, but let me explain it to you again. What is spaced repetition? So, repetition, like repeating something, and spaced, having space between repeating. So, in other words, you have different intervals of time between you learn something. So, if we take the example from before with karada, it means body. So, you created the story, you analyzed the kanji, you looked different compositions of this kanji vocabularies, and you build a structure in your brain. So depending on how good you build the structure, you will have less time until you forget it. But there's like a curve of when you can still kind of remember that kanji. And I don't know, maybe some people will forget it after 2 hours. Some people will forget it after 2 days. Some people will forget it after 1 year, and some people will like never forget it. But to be sure that it stays in your brain, you need to repeat it. So for example, you learned the kanji and you learned it, and 2 minutes later you repeat what you learned. 20 minutes later you repeat what you learned. 1 day, 5 days, 6 months, and so on. But another question arises, and that is the question about when should I repeat it? And you can do it by yourself, of course. But for me, it is too much to do it by myself. And you will not remember. I mean, the point is to not forget it. So if you forget it, you will maybe forget to repeat it. But anyway, what I want to showcase to you is an application. I'm not sponsored. It's just an application I use daily since I started learning Japanese. And I know many other people also use it. Not just for learning Japanese. I know that people that study medicine also use it often. It's called Anki. And you can be proud because Anki are even two kanji words from Japanese. It has a Japanese meaning. And what does Anki mean? Yeah, to memorize. So it's the perfect app. So basically in Anki you create a deck. There are many variations of how to create a deck. And you basically create a card. It's the most simple variant. And you have a front and a back side. So on the front side, you, for example, have the kanji. And on the back side, for example, you have the translation of the kanji or of the word. So you have the kanji for karada, and on the back, you have the meaning of body. And you can also have your specific time intervals and decide how fast it will show you the card again. But that's something you don't really need to know. For now, you just create the card there. You create the deck, for example, kanji. Then create your card, how I told you before. And then you do the card. And if you have it right, the application will show you again in 2 minutes, for example. If you do it after 2 minutes, the application realizes, okay, you remembered. So it will show you after 10 minutes and 1 day and 2 days and 5 days. And you even have some slots where you can decide how good did you remember it. Was it kind of hard? Was it really easy to remember, or didn't you remember it at all? And with this application, for example, if you fail after 2 days, it will see, okay, maybe you got it right after 1 day, and then after 2 days it showed it to you again, and it saw you failed. So it will know, okay, 2 days interval is too much. You will forget about it. So it will show you not after 2 days, but maybe after 1 day again. And with this way, you have an automation of spaced repetition. So the structure you need to do by yourself, but the application will take the spaced repetition for you. So just try it out, and if you have some answers about the application, just write down in the comments. You can use it on your PC and on your phone and on your iPhone. And the greatest thing is, even if I use it on my phone, I can also use it in the train when I'm going to university, while I'm walking. It is really easy to do and to keep up with your learning schedule. And I can synchronize it in my account, so when I'm at my PC, I will have the same information when I was at my phone. That's also a good point. I mean, I could write a book about how good I like this application and how I love it, but let's keep it there for now. Okay, so this was the most basic part of spaced repetition, and I think this is an application everyone should use. But how to have another way of spaced repetition in your daily life? And it's about creating hobbies or free time activities for your language learning. So for me, language learning can be kind of tedious sometimes, and also this kind of spaced app repetition is kind of maybe a bit too dry. So what you can do is, depending on your level, you can start to watch films in Japanese. You can start to watch anime in Japanese with German subtitles, or English, or Korean, whatever. And by this way, you have some kind of Japanese learning integrated in your free time. So maybe you learn something new, and then you watch a series and you see that vocabulary popping out. And then you see, this is used in this context. So your brain remembers, I learned it before, and that is used in this context. So by creating free time activities that have something to do with what you learn, in this case Japanese, it becomes easier for you to remember those things. And there are really many things you can do. So you can read books in Japanese when you're more advanced. You can watch films and series. You can also put your phone on Japanese, for example. Or you can watch news on Japanese. Or you can just put your, take a weather app that's in Japanese and just watch the weather in Japanese. So there are many ways how to get in contact with Japanese language. Yeah. Welcome to my last bonus tip. So it's not that big of a deal, but regarding the stories before you create with your vocabulary. One thing I noticed when learning Japanese, or learning in general, is that things that are kind of weird or not usual stick better in my mind. So let's take the story I used in the middle of the video about the kanji for warmth. So you have a plate with water on it that gets heated by the sun. Maybe this is kind of a normal story, but you can also take a kind of crazy story. And I'm not that crazy, but anyway, for example, you take your plate and you throw it inside the water and it comes out as a sun. And this sounds like nonsense to you. I mean, it sounds nonsense to me too. But because the story you created is so different from normal, usual things, you will kind of remember it. So, yeah, sometimes creating crazy stories is a good way to learn too. So, yeah, that's the takeaway for this video. I hope I could help you. If you still have questions, write them down in the comments. And if you want more language learning tips, videos about Japan in general, then just follow me and like the video. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. また今度よろしくね。So just a small addition to the video. I didn't use a script this time and I got a bit sick, so I couldn't write the script, but I hope it was kind of understandable. Just write me your feedback in the comments. Thank you very much.